Today we are going to look at Amazon CloudFront. So we will see as to what Amazon CloudFront is. Okay. So Amazon CloudFront is a fast content delivery network service that securely delivers your data, video, and applications and APIs to customers globally because they have 200 points of presence that they have set up across the entire world with low latency and high transfer speeds within a developer-friendly environment. Okay, so CloudFront is integrated with AWS in two ways that you can think of. One is using physical locations that are directly connected with the AWS global infrastructure, and the other one is for the AWS services. So, how do you think of these both? Is when it comes to some of the AWS services that you're accessing at a regional level or at a global level, in the background, it is using edge locations to serve your content. It is using a CloudFront distribution to serve your content. So, if suppose you are accessing the EC2 dashboard of the Northern Virginia region and so on, and you are accessing that particular website only from the Mumbai region, so you are situated in the Mumbai or in the Chennai region, you will be able to access that through CDN. Okay, so they use CloudFront in the background for even accessing some of the AWS services. And CloudFront works seamlessly with services including AWS Shield for DDoS mitigation, DDoS in the sense distributed denial of service attacks, and it also integrates with S3 with elastic load balancing and EC2 as origins for your application. And you can also integrate CloudFront with Lambda at Edge to run your custom code closer to the customer's users. Okay, so it means that you can run your Lambda code, which means you can run your functions that you have written under the Lambda service, and you can run this at 4 different intervals. One is at the viewer request, the second one is at the origin request, the third one is at the origin response, and the fourth one is at the viewer response. So at 4 different intervals, you will be able to run your Lambda code. We will look at that use case a little bit later. And lastly, if you use AWS origins, such as S3 or EC2 or load balancing for your CloudFront distribution, you don't have to pay for any data that is transferred between these services and CloudFront. Okay. So what he means by that statement is, if you are using your S3 static website hosting as one of the origins for CloudFront, you don't need to pay for the data that is transferred between CloudFront to your S3 bucket. Okay. So we will see as to how they have implemented a lot of these points of presence across the world. So on this region map, you can see that there are edge locations and there are also multiple edge locations. This we would have seen at the start when we discussed about AWS global infrastructure, but just a small refresher. So these multiple edge locations are denoted by the purple dot, and regional edge caches are a much bigger cache when it comes to an edge location. So there are around 11 to 15 regional edge caches, I believe, and the rest are all edge locations. Okay. So some of the benefits of using CloudFront is it's fast and global in the sense that you can utilize all of these 200 points of presence to ensure that your web application or any application that you have deployed scales globally and also is distributed globally. So you can, because it leverages in the background the highly resilient Amazon backbone network for superior performance. So all these edge locations are connected through fiber optic cables with low latency network throughput. Okay. And when it comes to security at the edge, Amazon CloudFront natively integrates with Amazon Certificate Manager. So Amazon Certificate Manager is a service that provides you with free SSL certificates. Okay, so using these SSL certificates, what you can do is you can add this SSL certificate to CloudFront in order to serve traffic through HTTPS protocol rather than HTTP protocol. Okay, and then when it comes to highly programmable benefit, you will be able to run your Lambda functions like I mentioned at 4 different intervals, which is at the viewer request, origin response, and viewer response. Okay. So when it comes to deep integration with AWS, it means that Amazon CloudFront integrates with a lot of AWS services. So for an example, we can take the Amazon Route 53 service. So Amazon Route 53 service enables you to go ahead and register your custom domain name. So when you go ahead and register your custom domain name, you would also like it to translate to CloudFront distribution, which is serving your website content, right? So you can see an integration over there that happens. And you can also have your CloudFront distribution integrate easily with Amazon S3. And that is the lab that we are going to do today. So we have our static website hosted bucket in S3. And over there, we'll be configuring Amazon CloudFront to sit over our S3 bucket to serve our content globally to the end users. And when it comes to custom error pages, this is another very nice property of CloudFront is because you will be able to configure your error pages for your website when one of these error codes are returned as a response. Okay, one of these HTTP status codes. It can be 400 or it can be 403 or even a server error. It can be a 500 internal server error. 402 and 403 also talks about method not supported. Error codes. So for these error codes, you will also be able to provide your own customized error pages that are part of your application, because you will generally have a template, right, for your web application. So for one example, you can take the Satyam Cinemas website, and for one such error code, they will have the same website template, but then they will have an error message according to that. So you will be able to integrate some of these custom error pages to your CloudFront. Okay. And when it comes to invalidations, you can go ahead and remove a file from the CloudFront's edge cache before it expires. Okay. And to do that, what you have to do is you will have to go ahead and enable invalidations. You can invalidate a file across all the edge locations. You can invalidate all the files within a folder across all edge locations. Okay. So you will be charged for each and every invalidation that you do. Okay. So if you want to go ahead and remove a file from any one of the edge locations before it expires, you can do one of these configurations. So the next time that the viewer requests for the particular file, the CloudFront directly talks to the origin and then fetches the latest version of that file. Okay. So these are some of the benefits. So going next to the security aspects of CloudFront in more detail, protection against network and application layer attacks. So there are some attacks that happen at the network layer of the OSI model at layer 4, and there are some attacks that happen at the application layer, which is at the layer 7. So CloudFront integrates with services such as AWS Shield, with Web Application Firewall, which is called as WAF, and with Route 53 to work seamlessly together to create a flexible, layered security perimeter against multiple types of attacks. Okay, so it's always good practice to go ahead and integrate CloudFront with other services such as WAF. We will look at that, and then we will also have to integrate that with Route 53 and with AWS Shield in order to go ahead and mitigate some of the layer 4 and layer 7 based attacks. And then when we looked at Amazon Certificate Manager as one of the benefits of using CloudFront, we can also go ahead and do SSL and TLS encryptions with HTTPS protocol. Okay, to serve your end users. So your data will be encrypted in transit. And when it comes to access control, through geo restriction capability of CloudFront, you can also prevent users in specific geographic locations from accessing your content. Okay. And also with another property of CloudFront, which is called as Origin Access Identity or OAI feature, you can restrict access to an S3 bucket to only be accessed from CloudFront. So if suppose I have an S3 bucket created, right, and I have a lot of people accessing this S3 bucket, and in front of this S3 bucket, I have placed a CloudFront distribution. Now what I will do is I will redirect all the users to access only that CloudFront distribution, not the S3 bucket directly. And CloudFront in turn will talk to the S3 bucket using an access identity, and then the content will be delivered back to CloudFront, then from CloudFront to the end users. Okay, so I can ensure that the bucket is in private state, it is locked down, it is not being accessed by any of the users, and only CloudFront is able to access the S3 bucket. Okay, so that is called as Origin Access Identity, where you can keep your bucket as private and allow CloudFront to go ahead and access that specific S3 bucket. And before, in the previous point, using geo restriction capability, any particular country I will be able to block from accessing my particular application. And when it comes to compliance, CloudFront's infrastructure, that means the edge locations and the regional edge caches infrastructure in the background, are all compliant with PCI DSS level 1, with HIPAA, with some of the ISO certifications and compliance, and even with SOC compliance level, to ensure secure delivery of your most sensitive data. So there are certain books and rules that you can study about some of these compliance programs that they follow. That means for their hardware, for the infrastructure that they have created in the background, which you are using through a service called as CloudFront. So some of the availability aspects of CloudFront is that you can increase your application's availability, in the sense that generally when we see a lot of web applications often need to contend with spikes in traffic, right? So if it comes to the Black Friday sale of Amazon, or when it comes to Flipkart's sale, during those sales, they will have a lot of network throughput into their application, which means there is a high peak of traffic. Okay, so during those times, instead of going with an auto scaling group or any other service that AWS provides regarding high availability, you can go ahead and use CloudFront itself. So using CloudFront, you can cache your content in all the 200 points of presence worldwide in order to reduce your workload on your origin by only fetching content when needed, right? So if your content is being cached across all the edge locations, your edge locations are only going to respond to your end user's request. Your origin is still going to be silent until and unless your web application's content is not available in one of the edge locations. Then only CloudFront is going to talk to your origin and retrieve that content. Okay, so you, in using all the edge locations or all the 200 points of presence, you can increase your application's availability. And the second one is to enabling redundancy for your origins. So if suppose there is a case scenario wherein you have two S3 buckets with static website hosting that is serving the same content, you can have both the S3 buckets hooked up to a CloudFront distribution as two origins. Rather than having one origin, you can have two origins right now. So even if that particular region on which you have the first S3 bucket as an origin goes down or fails, or there is a tornado or there is a earthquake in that particular region that has that particular origin as your S3 bucket, you can still use CloudFront to serve your content to another S3 bucket, right? That is of a different origin. So you can do disaster recovery kind of scenarios even with CloudFront for having two different origins for your same CloudFront distribution. So while creating the CloudFront distribution, we'll be creating only one origin, but after that you can go ahead and add more than one origin to your CloudFront distribution. So that is described in the paragraph. Okay, so you can use CloudFront's native origin failover capability to automatically serve your content from a backup origin whenever your primary origin is unavailable. Okay, so you can set up your origins and it can be of type an EC2 instance, it can be an S3 bucket, or it can be some of the media services or even an on-premise HTTP server. Okay, so you can have two origins for your CloudFront distribution rather than having just one origin. So these are the availability aspects. So you can increase your application's availability by using the 200 points of presence. And even for disaster recovery kind of scenarios, you can have more than one origin for your CloudFront distribution. And both those origins are serving the same content. Even if one origin is down, you will still be able to go ahead and serve your content for CloudFront from another origin. So what comes as the cost effective aspect of CloudFront is that you have the pay as you go publicly available pricing model, and you have the committed traffic private pricing model also. So when it comes to CloudFront, you can do the pay as you go pricing model. So you only pay for what you use. There is no minimum fee. But if some customers are willing to make certain minimum traffic commitments, they also offer private committed pricing. So this is not touched up most in the exam. So just for you to know that they have two types of pricing models when it comes to CloudFront. And obviously, like we discussed at the start, there is free data transfer between AWS cloud services and CloudFront. So if you use any of the AWS origins such as S3 or EC2 or Elastic Load Balancing, you don't pay for any of the data that is transferred between these services and CloudFront. Okay, so we saw what CloudFront is, and we saw three different aspects. One being the security, one being the availability, and the third one being the cost effective aspect of using CloudFront. And we also saw some of the benefits. So next we are going to move on to the most interesting topic, which is called as Lambda at Edge, which was released recently in the year 2018 only. It's nearly a year old right now. And there are a lot of articles regarding this. So we will look at just one such use case. Okay. So a brief introduction into what AWS Lambda is that it allows you to run code without provisioning or managing servers. So you only think about the code that you're writing or your business use case. So you pay for only the compute time and the RAM that you consume. So there is no charge when your code is not running. Okay, so Lambda scales automatically and is highly available. So if there is 1 million requests into your Lambda function, Lambda scales parallelly to serve that 1 million requests, and that's why it's highly available also. Okay, so what Lambda at Edge does is it extends the capability of Lambda for you to run functions at the CloudFront's edge location. Okay, so that you can do some of the computations when it comes to having a user in different corners of the world. So when you take a CloudFront cache in the center, and then you have the origin server that is sitting behind the CloudFront cache, and then you have an end user who is accessing an object which is on the origin server, what's going to happen is you can run a Lambda function at 4 different intervals, like I mentioned at the start. You can run a Lambda function at the viewer request. You can run a Lambda function at the origin request. You can run a Lambda function at the origin response, and you can also run one at the viewer response. So to go into more detail, so what does the viewer request denote? right? The viewer request is the first one that happens, right? So the viewer request, that particular Lambda function that you are going to run, it executes when CloudFront receives the request from a viewer and before it checks to see whether the requested object is in the edge cache. So when you're going ahead and hitting a request to the CloudFront cache, this Lambda function will run before it actually checks whether that object is present in the cache. Okay. And when it comes to the origin request, that particular function executes only when CloudFront forwards the request to your origin. When the requested object is in the edge cache, the function doesn't execute, which means that only this function will run if your CloudFront cache is going to request for that object in the origin server. If it already has that object, it is going to directly respond to the end user. Okay, so this function is not going to run at that particular interval. So this function it's going to run before the object is going to be checked whether it's in the cache or not. And this function will run only when the CloudFront cache is going to talk to the origin server to retrieve that object. If the object is already in the cache, it's going to directly respond to the end user. This function will not run at that interval. And when it comes to the origin response, the function executes after CloudFront receives a response from the origin and before it caches the object in response. So generally, when I mentioned that when an object is not present in the CloudFront cache, it is going to look for the object in the origin server. And this function is going to run only when that CloudFront cache finds that object in the origin server, but before it caches that object in the response in the edge location. Okay, at that point of time, I will be running this particular Lambda function. Okay, and the final place where you can run a Lambda function is at the viewer response. So the function executes before returning the requested object to the viewer. The function executes regardless of whether the object is already in the edge cache or not. So over here in the viewer response, this function will always execute irrespective of whether the object is in the cache or not, or whether the object was brought from the origin server or not. Okay, so these are the 4 different intervals where you can run your Lambda function. So just to reiterate, viewer request is where you can run your function before it checks whether the object is in the CloudFront cache. Origin request is where when CloudFront goes ahead and checks with the origin server whether the object is there or not. If the object is already present in the CloudFront cache, this function will not run. And origin response is when this function will run when the CloudFront cache has requested for the object from the origin server, but it has still not cached in the response, right? When the response is going to come back from the origin server, this function will run. And only after this function runs, it will be cached in the CloudFront distribution or in one of the edge locations. Okay. And this function at the viewer response is going to run irrespective of whether the object is in the cache or not, or whether the CloudFront cache has requested for the object in the origin server. So it gives a lot of flexibility in terms of when it comes to a developer's point of view. So one such use case for developer's point of view is what we are going to look at. So when it comes to the image generation workflow that I have described over here, we are going to run Lambda function at 2 different intervals. Okay. The first interval is at the viewer request, like you guessed. Okay. And the second over here, we are not going to run any Lambda function because CloudFront is going to fetch the image from an S3 bucket, which is the origin. And in the third place, we are going to run a Lambda function. And this is at the origin response. This is as the viewer request. This is at the origin response. Okay. So how do we have such a use cases? You can go ahead and read this blog for more details, but then even the function code has been given in this blog, but we are going to look at some of the steps. Okay. So we have 2 Lambda functions at the viewer request and origin response. Okay. So what's going to happen over here is step 1 is where we have our first function. Okay. So at this particular junction at the viewer request, this Lambda function will run and only then will the object be cached at the edge location. Okay. So this function is going to run first, then only this object is going to be checked whether it's in the edge location or not. So where would you need to run such a function is because in this particular use case, you're going to check whether that person who is accessing your application is accessing it from an Android based mobile application browser or from a laptop based browser. Okay. So that's where you run the Lambda function. So the requested image URI is manipulated in the viewer facing Lambda function to serve the appropriate dimension and format. So if he is accessing from an Android mobile based application and it's a mobile based browser, based on that, the appropriate dimension of that image is going to be altered. That server URL or the URI is going to be altered. And if he's going to access it from a laptop, and it's going to be around 500 into 500 pixels, and when it's going to be from a mobile, it's going to be 100 into 100 pixels. Okay, so this particular lambda function runs before the request hits the cache, right? So this particular lambda function runs before it's going to hit the cache. So based on which you're going to decipher whether this viewer is accessing your application from a mobile or he is accessing it from a laptop. If he's accessing it from a laptop, you're modifying the URI to include a much bigger dimension, like 1200 into 728 and so on, because generally our laptop's resolution is 1200 into 728, or it's going to be a 1080p resolution. And when it comes from a mobile, you're going to decipher that and find out if he's going to access from a mobile, go forward with the smaller dimension, which is 100 into 100 dimension for the image. That is step one. So that's where you run a lambda function to decipher from which device he is accessing your application. Okay. And at the level, at the step two, CloudFront fetches the object from the origin. Okay. And at step three, what happens is, if the required image is already present in the bucket, okay, so this is step three. If the required image is already present in the bucket or is generated and stored, CloudFront returns the direct object to the viewer. Okay, so if you have already gone ahead and manipulated that object, okay, and if you have already cached that object in the CloudFront distribution, right, for that particular dimension that you are accessing it from here, CloudFront is automatically going to go ahead and send it back to the viewer through step 4. Okay, but if suppose the object is not cached, and the object is not stored in the CloudFront distribution, what's going to happen is, we are going to run this lambda function over here. This lambda function is going to talk to S3. It's going to fetch that object, change that object or that image based on the dimension that was given over here, whether it's 100 into 100 or 1280 into 720, and it's going to go ahead and save that generated image into the same S3 origin, and then it's going to go ahead and cache that CloudFront, because we saw that at this interval when the function runs, it's going to run this function before it goes ahead and caches that object into the CloudFront cache. Okay, so this is a very good use case. If that object is already present in the origin, if that object is already present in the cache, automatically you're going to serve that object to the end user. If that object is not present, then you're going to run this lambda function, take that object from S3, manipulate that object, which is that image, manipulate that image to serve one of these two dimensions, and then go ahead and cache that object or that image into your CloudFront distribution, and then send it back to the viewer. So you saw two different use cases over here where you are running a lambda function. So that's given in the fifth step. So the resize operation is invoked only when an image is not present in the origin. So a network call is made to the S3 bucket to fetch that source image and resize it. The generated image is persisted back to the bucket before sending it to CloudFront. So this lambda function runs before you are caching that object, right? So this is at the viewer request. This is at the origin response. Just to reiterate this flow, this lambda function goes ahead and finds out from which mobile app, from which device you are accessing that particular application, whether it's from a mobile or whether it's from a laptop. If it's from a mobile, based on which you will have to find out the dimension of that particular mobile. It can be 100 into 100 pixel dimension for your image. And if it's going to be from a laptop, it can be 1280 into 760 or 1080 into 1920 into 1080 for 1080p dimensions. And then at this interval, your lambda function is going to run, which is going to check whether that object is present or not in the cache. If it's not present, then go ahead and contact S3, find that particular image, change it according to this dimension, save it back to the S3 origin, and then send it back to CloudFront. CloudFront is going to go ahead and cache that object right now that you have generated and saved in the S3 origin through this lambda function. So at two different intervals, you can see that we can run lambda functions for this particular use case. So similarly, even at these two intervals, you can run. At this interval, if you run a lambda function, it's going to run irrespective of whether the object is present in the cache or whether it has been returned from the origin. Okay, so this is the concept of lambda at edge. So we have come to the end of the slideshow. Okay, so it's very easy to understand that you can run lambda function at 4 different intervals. This has still not been updated in the Solutions Architect Associate exam, but then probably in the next year, when a new version of the exam comes out in the April 2020, we may probably see certain scenario based questions regarding lambda at edge. But it's very useful for developers to manipulate some of the requests that have been made, and these lambda functions run at each and every edge location that the user is going to request for the object to, because we know that CloudFront is a collection of 200 points of presence. So if you put your Lambda function at the viewer request for all the edge locations that your viewer is going to request for the object to, first this Lambda will run, and then only it's going to look for that object in the CloudFront's cache. See, look at how beautifully they have done this. So for all the 200 points of presence, if your viewer is in Mumbai region and there is an edge location that is closer to him that is going to serve the request, before serving the request, it is going to first check with this Lambda function whether that from which device he is accessing, whether it's going to be from mobile or whether it's going to be from a laptop. And then CloudFront is going to check whether it has the image already cached. If it has the image already cached, directly take the image, send it back to the viewer. If the image is not cached, go ahead and run this Lambda function. So this Lambda function goes ahead and checks with S3, takes the image, generates the image based on the dimension that is present from the user, whether he's accessing it from a mobile or from a desktop, and then go ahead and cache the content in CloudFront and then send it back to the viewer. So if for the second time that user is going to access that same application and he is going to access the same image, automatically this first Lambda is going to be checked whether he is accessing it from a mobile or from a desktop. And then based on that URI, it's going to check whether the image is already cached. The first time it was already cached. So from the second time onwards, you're going to directly get the response from the cached location itself. This function need not even run. So that's why in the note, we have mentioned that steps 2, 3, and 5, wherein CloudFront fetches the object from the origin. And if the if the required image is already present, go ahead and send it back to the end user. And resizing, it happens only when the object is stale or does not exist in the cache. Okay. So generally static resources like images and all that should have a longer time to live. Okay. So the reason why you should have a longer time to live is because if suppose we consider a use case wherein we are in a developer environment and during our development stage, we are committing our code literally every hour or so, right? And when we are committing our code literally every hour or so, and we have a CloudFront distribution that is present, and you specify the TTL to be 1 day, you will never see the newer version of your code being reflected at the CloudFront distribution's domain name. Your website will still be the older version because all of your content has been cached and it's going to stay there in all the edge locations for 1 day. So that's why during the development phase alone, the time to live should be configured as low as possible if you are using CloudFront. But generally during the development phase, we will never use CloudFront. But when it comes to production, where you are going to serve your content to the end users globally, you will go ahead and configure a time to live that is going to be approximately 1 day or 86,400 seconds. Okay. So based on this, we will go ahead and do the lab. Okay. I'll show you as to how to configure a CloudFront distribution. But before that, once we have logged into the console, you can see that we already have our static website over here. And the static website has an index.html and error.html. Okay. So just to show you, under properties, static website hosting has been configured. Copy this URL, paste it on the browser. We can see we have hello cloud gurus. Okay. So this is from the S3's static website hosted endpoint. Okay. So when it comes to CloudFront, I already have a distribution like I mentioned, because generally takes 20 to 30 minutes to configure a distribution. Okay. So what we are going to do is I'm going to walk you through all the settings of how do you configure a distribution. And then we will go ahead and access this domain name for the existingly deployed CloudFront distribution. Okay. So when we go ahead and create a distribution, it's going to ask you for 2 types of distribution that you want to do. One is for web-based distribution where you have your dynamic content as HTML, CSS, PHP, and graphics files. Okay. And the second type of distribution is called as an RTMP distribution. And this is for media files. And it's using the RTMP protocol. And most of the time in the exams, we don't see RTMP distribution based questions. Okay. So over here, we are going to go with only web-based. So you can actually forget that there is something as RTMP based distribution. It's to serve media files. Okay. But then when you want live streaming, live content streaming, and you want to host your web application, and this web application should be deployed across all the 200 points of presence, we are going to go with web-based distribution. So when we click on get started, it's going to ask us for the origin domain name. So you can see over here, we have all the S3 buckets listed. And when we scroll down, you can also have your origin as Elastic Load Balancer. You can also have your origin as some of the media services, which can be media package and media store. So what we are going to do is we are going to take this statically hosted website endpoint, and we are going to give the statically hosted website endpoint as our origin. So you can see over here that I have removed the slash from the last, and at the start also you will have http:// we don't want that. Okay, so it should be only the static website endpoint without the http and the slash at the end. Okay, so it shouldn't be the name of the S3 bucket also. It should be the static website hosted endpoint, and automatically your origin ID is populated, and this is to denote as to an unique identifier for your origin. Okay, and some of the properties alone I'm going to walk you through, not all the properties. Some of the configurations that we saw in the slides, we are going to look at that over here. So you can see over here the viewer protocol policy. It can be only HTTPS, it can be HTTP and HTTPS, it can also be redirect HTTP to HTTPS. So if suppose I have a SSL certificate and I want to use only HTTPS, I can choose use only HTTPS. Or if suppose one of the user goes ahead and manually changes the endpoint to be from HTTPS to HTTP, I can even redirect that user to go to HTTPS. But right now I will have the viewer protocol policy as default, which is going to be HTTP and yes, and all the allowed over here. So I'm going to go with all the allowed methods. So I will also be able to do delete, put, post, and patch request to my CloudFront distributions domain name. Okay, and over here, which is very important, which is the object caching. So these are some of the settings. If I'm skipping, those are not necessary for the exam. Okay, but then when it comes to the object caching over here, you can customize your own TTL. So the default TTL you can see over here is 1 day, and the maximum TTL over here, you can convert this into a number of days and find out as to what it is. But right now what we are going to do is, if suppose we are in the development phase, I'm going to configure my maximum TTL and default TTL to be 30 seconds. Okay, and minimum TTL is going to be 0. So what is meant by this is that how much time would you actually like to wait until your objects are deleted from your CloudFront cache? That means from all the edge locations, and your default TTL is going to be the same. Okay, so based on this, I'm also going to go ahead and configure some of the other properties. So when it comes to restricting viewer access, you can use your signed URLs or signed cookies. So based on a particular signed URL, your user will be able to access the objects on your CloudFront distribution. And then when it comes to Lambda at edge, okay, when it comes to running Lambda at edge, you can see over here, we discussed those 4 different intervals, right? Viewer request, viewer response, origin request, and origin response. At this particular interval, if you already have a Lambda function created, you can specify that Lambda function over here. Okay, and when it comes to distribution settings, under the price class, use all edge locations for best performance is the default setting, but you can also use the edge locations that are only part of US, Canada, and Europe, or US, Canada, Europe, Asia, Middle East, and Africa. Okay, but we are going to go ahead and use only all edge locations for best performance, because they have grouped all the edge locations across the world based on these 3 categories. And when we mentioned about the security aspect of using CloudFront, that you can also prevent some of your network layer and application layer attacks, you can go with AWS WAF, okay, or web application firewall. Probably we will dedicate a separate class as to where we can create a web application firewall and then integrate it with this CloudFront distribution. But right now you can note that under the distribution settings, we can also include our web application firewalls, ACL, or access control list over here. And when this is to prevent your layer 4 and layer 7 attacks, such as cross-site scripting, SQL injection, HTTP flood, bad bot scraping, and so on. Okay. And when it comes to alternate domain names, so a very classic example for using alternate domain names is that if suppose you have purchased your own domain name and it looks like www.example.com, and then you're translating that domain name into CloudFront distributions domain name, which is auto-generated, you can go ahead and specify your custom domain name that you have bought over here as alternate domain name. So I can specify www.example.com, and then I should have actually bought example.com. Okay. And by default, CloudFront works with SSL certificate. So by default, you will get a default SSL certificate that goes ahead and serves your content over HTTPS. And the default SSL certificate is going to end with star.cloudfront.net. But if suppose you can go ahead and present your own SSL certificate, you can present your own SSL certificate over here. Okay. And that is, you can go ahead and purchase that SSL certificate from AWS Certificate Manager. Okay. So that is one of the services in AWS that is presenting you with default SSL certificates, okay, at free of cost. So if you have an SSL certificate, you can present that over here. And SSL certificates advantage is to go ahead and serve your traffic over HTTPS protocol. And you can see over here that some of the HTTP versions that are supported, we will go with the HTTP protocol version 2 with 1.1 and 1.0. You can read more about this in the documentation. And when it comes to the default root object, this is very important because right now our default root object is going to be index.html, right? So this default root object I have to present over here because this is the object that is going to be served when you go ahead and click on your CloudFront distributions domain name. So it's going to check for this object and it's going to check for that object in the origin that you specified, which is your static website hosted S3 bucket. And then even you will have logs for your CloudFront distribution. So some of the logs for your CloudFront distribution is who are the people who are accessing your CloudFront distribution, which IP address are they accessing this CloudFront distribution from. So those kind of related details you will be able to get from CloudFront's logs. So you can specify your own S3 bucket for the logs, and you can specify a log prefix, and you can also enable cookie based logging. Okay. So for each and every setting, you can just click on this information and check. Okay. So right now I'm going to switch off logging, but just imagine that you also have a setting that gives you access logs for your CloudFront distribution. So you can enable IPv6 support also, and then you can also keep this distribution at the enable.disable state when you create it. So right now, if we go ahead and create this distribution, it's going to take 20 to 30 minutes. But most of the settings I have walked you through, except some of the settings that are not necessary for the exam, such as origin path or custom headers and so on. But when we looked at restricting users from accessing your S3 bucket directly, but they will have to only go through your CloudFront distribution to access your S3 bucket, that can be done using origin path or origin access identity. Okay. So right now I'm going to click on cancel. I already have the web-based distribution over here. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through other configurations also. So when you click on this web distribution that we have already created before and click on distribution settings, this is how you navigate to all the different properties. So some of the properties that you didn't see while creating the distribution were error pages, restrictions, and invalidations. Okay. So this is the general details. So if you have a WAF that you have added with this CloudFront distribution for mitigating your DDoS attacks and layer 4 and layer 7 network attacks, you can view that over here. And when you create a distribution, automatically randomcharacter.cloudfront.net as the DNS name is provided for your distribution. So you will have to access your website only through this domain name. Okay. And you can see over here, SSL client support has not been given as any because we didn't provide any SSL certificate. If we provide any SSL certificate, we'll be able to get this support also. And you can see we have enabled the latest support for all the 3 protocol versions of HTTP. And our default root object is index.html that is present within the S3 bucket. And this root object will be delivered when you go ahead and access the domain name. Okay. And we are using all the edge locations for best performance. It's in the deployed status right now. And under origins and origin group, you can see that we have one origin over here, which is our static website hosted bucket. And we are going to go with the origin protocol policy is HTTP alone. And we are also using HTTPS. So the port 443 is also supported. Port 80 is also supported. If you want to go ahead and add any other origins, if you have an elastic load balancer, or if you have an EC2 instance or a web server that is serving the same content, you can go ahead and add one more origin over here. And like I mentioned, you can fail over between origins. Set this as first priority, set the second origin as second priority. And if the first origin fails, you can go ahead and serve your content from the second origin, and CloudFront does it on your behalf in the background. Okay. When it comes to behavior, you can see that we have 0 as the first priority for the first precedence or behavior for this particular origin. And the viewer protocol policy is supporting both HTTP and HTTPS. So you can create any additional behaviors also that you would like. And under error pages, this is where we can configure our error pages for some of the HTTP status codes that we saw, which were related to 400 or 402 or 500 and so on. So you can create custom error response. You can click on your error code. So you can see all the details of your error code, bad request, forbidden, method not allowed, 500 internal server error and all that. And you can do a customized error response page. So when you click on method not allowed or bad request right now. So let's go with method not allowed, and we want a customized error response. You can go ahead and present your error page if you have it within your source S3 bucket. So right now I have an index.html. So let's go with error.html. Okay. Index.html is the default root object, and error.html, and I'm going to go with slash denotation over here. So you can just click on this and see that. So enter the path and file name. Okay. So it should be slash and that particular file name. Okay. And when it comes to the response code that you want to send back, I'm going to send back at 200. Okay. Because when this method not allowed happens, what CloudFront is going to do is it's going to check whether there is any error page that is configured with 405 method not allowed. If there is an error page, send it back as 200. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and create this error page, but we will not see it in action. Okay. And the next property that we saw was regarding access control and geolocation restriction. So I can go ahead and edit geolocation restriction. I can enable geolocation restriction, and there is a concept of whitelist and blacklist. So this concept of whitelist states that I can put all the countries that I want to whitelist, and those are the countries that will be able to access my CloudFront distribution. But when it comes to blacklist, I can specify some of the countries that are not allowed. So this is just the opposite of whitelist. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead with blacklist, and I'm going to add, let me add India. Okay, I'm going to add India. So that means I myself will not be able to go ahead and access the website. Let's check whether this works out or not. I'm going to click yes, edit. Because I'm in India, I'm in Chennai right now, I should not be able to go ahead and access the CloudFront distributions endpoint. When it comes to invalidations, okay, so for invalidations alone, you are charged. So where would you need to do an invalidation? Because at some points of time you would like to delete all of your objects that are in all the edge locations or in all the 200 points of presence that you have configured, right? At those points of time, if you want to manually go ahead and delete all the objects, you can go ahead and create an invalidation, because each and every object that is being cached in the edge location has an ID, and that ID is a unique ID that is tied with the CloudFront distributions domain name. Okay. So if you want to go ahead and create an invalidation, it's going to look at your CloudFront distributions domain name, find that unique ID, find all the objects that are associated with your CloudFront distribution across all the edge locations, and it's going to go ahead and delete those objects. So I'm going to create an invalidation. To remove everything, you can just specify slash and star. It's going to remove all the objects in all your edge locations. If you want to specify particular prefix, you can specify a particular prefix with slash and star. So I can say the book prefix, and then I can do a slash and star. So all the objects that are within the book's prefix, right, will be deleted from all the edge locations. So you can go ahead and create your own invalidations, but for each invalidation, you are charged. And then tags, like we know, is you can go ahead and add or edit tags. You can have around 50 tags for your CloudFront distribution. And we saw at the start, tags were mainly denoted to go ahead and find out for which particular project, which resources applicable. And it also displays in your cost allocation report, which we saw with S3 as one of the configurations. So tags is nothing but a key value pair that you associated with the distribution. So these are all the properties. So if let's just check it out, let's go to general. Let's copy our CloudFront distributions domain name right now. And let me try to access it. Since I have put a geolocation restriction in India, I'm going to open a new incognito window, and I'm going to paste my endpoint. I'm going to click on enter. So you can see that we got our geolocation restriction. So we got a 403 error. So this request could not be satisfied. CloudFront's distribution is configured to block access from your country because I'm accessing it from India. So let's go ahead and remove the restriction. I'm going to click on restriction, I'm going to click on no to disable the entire geolocation restriction. Click on yes, edit. I'm going to go back to my incognito window, Control Shift R to reload. It'll take a little bit of time. We'll just wait for a little bit of time. I'm just going to copy this and probably open a new incognito window. Let's do that. So it takes a little bit of time to resolve. Okay, so we have done it. Okay, so we can see that even at the CloudFront distributions domain name, we are able to view our statically hosted content from our website. So this is from the S3 website endpoint directly, and this is from the CloudFront distributions endpoint directly, because our CloudFront distribution is going ahead and accessing S3, and it's going ahead and getting that content. So you can see over here right now that probably we'll be using HTTPS. Okay, let's copy this. How do you find out it's using HTTPS? Okay. Okay. Let's try on HTTP itself. HTTP // Okay. So we are able to access. What about HTTPS? We are still able to access. So on HTTPS, you can see that your connection is secure because your certificate is valid, and this certificate has been automatically given to us by CloudFront, and that's why your website is able to go ahead and serve traffic on HTTPS also, because you have a default SSL certificate that is associated. Okay, if you want to go ahead and associate your own SSL certificate, go ahead and start using Amazon Certificate Manager, generate your SSL certificate, associate with your CloudFront distribution, go ahead and redeploy your CloudFront distribution. And for redeploying, for each and every setting, when you redeploy, it takes 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, because it has to update your CloudFront distribution settings across all the edge locations. Okay, so this is all regarding CloudFront. I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and we'll be open up for questions.